measurements, fractions, ratios, Pythagorean theorem, all in the real world. Let's get into it. You talk about it all the time, right? You hear about like, well, when am I going to use this in real life? But one thing that does come up a lot is what's called trades math, especially when you start talking about measuring tapes. So here in the United States, right, we use inches. Oh, can you hand me the measuring tape that's right there, please? Got a brand new measuring tape right here. Ooh, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get this open. This is always the worst. Got it. I thought for sure I was gonna slice my hand open. Hi, I'm Sarah. I've been a science and math teacher for over 20 years. I'm here to make math engaging and fun and not so scary for everyone involved. If this goes away, follow me on all the other platforms. So here we go. So here is a foot. This measuring tape doesn't even have like centimeters on it. So if you see on our rulers, typically you've got one side that has inches and one side that has centimeters. And you know, the metric system with being like base 10, it makes a whole lot of sense. But you know, everybody always talks about how they hate fractions. It's terrible, it's awful. But unfortunately, if you're ever going to build something, and you know, I guess if you're living in the United States and you're going to build something, you're going to deal with fractions. And that is because with our measuring system, right here, we've got 1 foot, which is 12 inches. Okay. So you're going to need to deal with, you can see all of these little lines, and these are all fractions. So if you're building something, if you're like putting something together, you're trying to fix something in your house, these little lines here are fractions. When we look at this, right, between the line, between 5 and 6 inches, we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 little tiny like spots, right? Or not spots, but like little lines. So between those two, so I'm going to do this. So if we're looking at an inch like that. Okay. So if I'm looking at something along these lines, so here we've got, if we've got like, this is 5 inches and this is 6 inches, right? Now these are fractions that I think people can kind of get behind, right? Because these are things that you are going to deal with. So with a fraction, we've got 1 whole inch here, and we've got it divided up, and there are 16 little lines, which means that we've got each one of these little lines is 1/16 of an inch. Okay. So if we've got 1 whole, right, this point here, right here in the middle, okay, is 1/2, but it's also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 8/16 of an inch. Okay, so 8/16 of an inch. So 8/16 of an inch is the same thing as 1/2. So we can kind of go through and we can see all these different things. So we've got 16ths are all the little lines, right? Are all the smallest lines. Let's see. So the easiest way to kind of figure out what fraction you're looking at when you have this is look at how many little lines there are, right? So if we were looking at something like, if I had something that went to this part here, right? So you okay, so it's 5, and then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 6/16 of an inch. Okay, now 6/16, we know that 6/16, or actually we can see, I've also got 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Wait, 1, 2, 3. This is very confusing, right? So this is 3/8. Okay, because each of the smaller lines is a 16th, then the bigger lines is an 1/8. Okay, so this is the same thing as 3/8 of an inch, right? So if you go in and you ask for 6/16 of something, not going to happen. If you go in and ask for 3/8, right, that's when you're going to be able to see. Now, the other thing is kind of like figuring out which one's bigger, which one's smaller. Like if you're looking at different, like if you have a socket wrench and you're looking at different sockets, you're going to have to think about like, oh, this one doesn't fit yet. I need a smaller number, right? I need a smaller socket. Well, you can just go through And you can figure out if you've got 3/8 for a socket, right? And you need one smaller, are you going to try 7/16? No, because 7/16 is up here. So that's actually going to be bigger, right? Are you going to use like 1/4? Yeah, you could try 1/4, right? Because 1/4 is a little bit smaller, right? So these are all like actual like applications where you need to understand kind of the basics of fractions, right? And there are some things where you get into like adding the fractions and things like that, especially if you have two lengths that you're trying to figure out. You can kind of get into that a little bit more. But really it's, just having that relationship between like it's larger, it's smaller and stuff like that. Okay? Um so the other piece that was on that Reddit thread was rise over run for like the slope of the roof. That even gets into some trig things. So for example, like if you're trying to make a ramp, right? That's ADA compliant. I think the ramp is what is the grade? Is it 2 degrees? There is a grade. Okay, so it has a maximum slope of 1 to 12. So an ADA ramp has a slope of no more than 1 to 12. So that's not even getting into trig, right? That's just talking about the slope. So we've got for every 1 inch rise. So a 1 inch rise should be no less than a 12-inch run. So it's 1 inch for every foot. So if you have a step that you need to get up and it is 6 inches tall, right? That means that your rise is going to be 6. So your run has to be 6 times 12. So it has to be 1 to 12. Look at this. We got a proportion too. 72, right? So to get up that 6-inch rise, that one step, you have to have a ramp. So this needs to be 72 inches. Is that board 72 inches? If that board is going up 6 inches and it's going horizontally 72 inches, 72-inch board is not going to cut it, right? Because my favorite Pythagorean theorem, right? So we got to figure out how long that board is. So that board needs to be longer than 72 inches. It's going to be longer than 6 inches. It's going to be, this is definitely a calculator problem because I don't want to do 72 squared. Okay, so it's 72 squared plus 6 squared. So this is going to be the square root of 72 squared plus 6 squared, which is the square root of 5220, which is about 72.2 inches. So about 72 and a quarter, right? Again, if you are using a measuring tape, you're going to have to put it into a fraction. Okay, so this would be like 72 and a quarter. You would probably round up. You would say like you want it to be 72 and a half at least, because then you would certainly get, you would certainly meet that the ADA requirements for the rise over run. Okay, so again, these are a couple of real world applications for just ratios, proportions, right? I know that our facilities guys use these things all the time, right? They're trying to figure out the center, right? How far apart do studs have to be? Like things like that. There's all sorts of applications when you're talking about going into the trades and things like that. That's mathed up.